Alright, so in this video we're taking a look at this worksheet from section 2.3. I noticed some people were having some trouble with some of these derivatives. Oops, let me refocus my camera here. I think there was a little bit of confusion on some of these problems, so let's take a look at some of these derivatives. So we're applying the quotient rule and the quotient rule and the product rule. And so just as a reminder what those are, okay, so here's our quotient rule and our product rule. Okay, so when I differentiate this, I want to take the derivative of the first, and so you could write it this way. X to the 8 minus the square root of 3 times x prime times 8x plus the first function, x to the 8 minus the square root of 3 times x times the derivative of 8 to the x power, right? Good. And so then on the next line, right, we can figure out what these derivatives are. So this is a good way to do some of these if they get a little bit more complicated. So the derivative of x to the 8 is just going to be our 8x to the 7th minus the square root of 3, square root of 3, and then the derivative of the x, right, this is the constant times the function rule, so the derivative of square root of 3 times x is the square root of 3 times the derivative of x, and the derivative of x is 1. Okay, and then we just multiply by 8 to the x power, and that looks like 8x. And then we add the first function times the derivative of that, which is 8 to the x times the natural log of 8. Good. So that is the first one. And you can leave your answer written out like this. Okay, so the second one we have g of z is equal to 9z plus 4 divided by 4z plus 5. Okay, so then the derivative is going to be, derivative of the top is 9 times the bottom, 4z plus 5. This one's easy enough that I'm just going to take the derivatives as I go. And then the derivative of the bottom is 4 times the top function is 9z plus 4, all divided by the bottom function squared. Good. So you can leave your answer in that form. Good. And the h of r is next. R squared over 15r plus 11. Okay, so again, the thing you want to be thinking to yourself is derivative of the top, which is 2r, times the bottom, 15r plus 11, minus the top, right, that's the top, r squared, times the derivative of the bottom is 15, all divided by the bottom function squared. Good. And let's see, s of q, we have 4 times cosine of q times the sine of q. Now remember that this is a product, right? You can take the 4 with the cosine if you want as one function, right? So then s prime of q, in fact in this case I'm going to go ahead and write it out this way, 4 cosine of q prime times the sine of q plus, and then the first function, 4 cosine of q times the derivative of the sine. Okay, and so as you're starting off on these derivative formulas, sometimes it's nice to write it out what you're actually trying to do here. So the derivative of 4 cosine would be minus 4 sine. So minus 4 sine times sine would be minus 4 sine squared. And then we have plus 4 cosine times the sine, so that's going to be 4 times the cosine. But then the derivative of sine is also cosine, so you end up with 4 times cosine, which is 4 times cosine squared. Good. And you can leave your answer in that form. And finally, we have our r of t. This one I saw quite a few people not applying the product rule for the first function. So we have t sine of t plus cosine of t. So this is going to be a product rule, and then this will just be by itself, right? So the way to think about that then is that r prime of t is going to be the derivative of t sine of t plus the derivative of cosine, which is minus the sine of t. Okay, and then when I differentiate this first one, I need to use the product rule, right? So I'm going to have 1 times the sine of t plus t times the derivative of sine, which is cosine of t. Good, and then I'll have this minus the sine of t out in front, and it looks like the sines cancel each other. So you do end up with t cosine of t. Good. All right. I think on the back side of the worksheet, we talked about these in class. But if you do still have questions about how to do either of those, be sure and come to the office. We can talk. All right, so these are the solutions for worksheet for 2.3.